Hello children, welcome to online psychology class. The purpose of this lesson is twofold. One, to recapitulate what we learned in class 11, and two, to quickly have an overview of what we are going to learn in class 12. The first chapter was dedicated to understanding the nature of psychology or the subject matter of psychology. Herein, we started off with the definition of psychology, the nature of the subject, whether it's a bioscience, whether it's a social science, or a pure science. Next, we looked at the various perspectives in psychology or the schools in psychology, starting from structuralism till psychoanalysis. We covered 5 major schools of psychology. We also studied about different fields of psychology and how heredity and environment play a role, an interactive role, in shaping human beings' behavior, mental processes, and experiences. So, we did study about methods to understand heredity and environment interaction. In the second chapter, we were basically concerned with learning methods in psychology. What are the methods that we employ to understand mental processes, experiences, and behaviors? Herein, we did 5 methods which are used in psychology to generate data and to do scientific studies. Within this chapter itself, we studied about what after data collection, what all do we do to the data, how do we subject the data to statistical analysis, and how does statistics help us in understanding the data, in churning out meaning from the data that we have in hand. The next 5 chapters, attention and perception, learning, memory, emotions and motivation, and thinking, were all dedicated to understanding the major mental processes that go on within human beings. So we tried to understand all these processes. We learned about many theories, major theories about attention, perception, emotions, motivation, learning, memory, and thinking. In class 12, we are going to learn some more mental processes. Along with that, we also will learn about certain characteristics within individuals which make them different from others. So the first 2 chapters in class 12 are dedicated to these very characteristics which differentiate people from one another. The first chapter, Intelligence and Ability, talks about the notion of intelligence, the meaning of intelligence, the notion of IQ, various theories of intelligence, and measurement of intelligence. We will also be learning about aptitude, interest, and achievement. So this is going to be a very interesting chapter where we will be actually learning about certain tests which we employ to understand the intelligence level of a person. So we have various tests in psychology that can be used to measure intelligence levels of a person. The second chapter looks at personality. We'll be learning about what it means in psychological literature, what personality means. We'll be doing multiple theories of personality, what people have to talk about personality, how they look at personality. To give you an example, we have already done Maslow's need hierarchy in class 11, which we'll be covering under this chapter. So after theories, we'll be going to assessment of personality. We will be doing various kinds of tests which we can use to assess the personality or the internal psychological characteristics of individuals. So these 2 chapters are going to be interesting chapters wherein we'll be learning about intelligence and personality, the 2 major characteristics which make people differ from each other. The third chapter is lifespan development, which talks about the growth, maturation, and development of human beings from conception till old age. But for the sake of syllabus, from the point of view of syllabus, we are going to learn only about 3 stages in a person's life. We'll be learning about 3 different stages, which are infancy, childhood, and adolescence. We'll be looking at cognitive development, physical development, and social emotional development across these 3 stages. Primarily, we'll be looking at 2 major theories. One, a theory of cognitive development given by Jean Piaget. We all remember learning about Jean Piaget in class 11. So we'll be going into details of his theory of cognitive development in this chapter. Apart from Jean Piaget, we'll be learning about moral development, theory of moral development given by Kohlberg. The next chapter, which talks about stress and stress management, again is going to be a very interesting chapter where we'll be learning about what do we mean by stress and how stress affects our day-to-day functioning. And we'll also be learning about whether we can handle stress in effective ways. So we'll be asking questions such as whether stress is good or bad. Is all stress bad? Can we handle stress in beautiful ways? Can we evolve strategies? Can we evolve skills to manage our stress in ways which will be effective for us? And we'll also be learning what are the ineffective ways of handling stress or managing stress. So it all depends on how you manage stress. If you are able to, if you have the skills, if you know about the skills to manage stress effectively, then stress becomes a stepping stone for you. Otherwise, stress becomes something that debilitates you, something that handicaps you. So we'll be learning about both effective and ineffective ways of stress management. The next chapter, chapter 5, psychological disorders and psychotherapy, again is going to be a very interesting chapter where we'll be learning about different kinds of psychological disorders and the classification of psychological disorders. We'll be understanding few major disorders and their symptoms. We'll also be looking at psychotherapy or the treatment that psychology has to offer to solve psychological problems. So we'll be looking at various theories which explain the causes of psychological disorders, and we'll also be looking at theories or approaches which talk about methods of treatment of psychological disorders. To quickly take you back to class 11, you remember we did chapter learning. In the learning chapter, the last section, a very small section, was dedicated to application of learning principles to solving problems. To exactly give you the name of the subsection was named application of principles of learning. Now herein, within this section, I hope you remember, we did 5 or 6 ways of handling problems using behavioral approaches, using learning principles. And these were systematic desensitization, aversion training, assertiveness training, implosive therapy, flooding, etc. So these are some of the methods that psychology has to offer in terms of giving solution to psychological problems or disorders. The next chapter, social thought and social behavior, will be telling us about the psychology of in social situations. So we'll be looking at social behavior just as we learned about perception of objects. We learned about depth perception last year in class 11. Now we'll be looking at perception in social settings. So we'll be talking about social perception. We'll be talking about perception that takes place in social situations, how we perceive others and how we think others are perceiving us. So we'll be looking at this interesting aspect in this chapter. The next chapter, which is attitudes, will be talking about the meaning of attitude and prejudice. So to quickly give you an idea of what attitude is, we all know what attitude is, but psychologically speaking, attitude is a combination of thought, feeling, and behavior. You remember I gave you a triangle which talks about a connection between thought, behavior, and emotions or feelings. So this is what we'll be learning again in class 11, class 12, when we'll be doing this chapter on attitudes. The last chapter is applications of psychology, and we have done applications of psychology in chapter 1 in class 11. This is going to be a detailed version of those applications. The areas that we are going to confine ourselves would be clinical and counseling psychology, educational psychology, organizational psychology, and crime. So we'll be looking at how psychology offers solutions to problems in these 4 areas. So I hope, children, and I sincerely look forward to further lessons, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope you keenly look forward to the next presentations. Thank you. All the best.